My parents provide me with everything that I need, even when I feel like I don't deserve it. They offer me food, love, shelter, and yet every act of love and support that they give me constantly erodes the selfhood that I'm trying to build as a 33-year-old woman. The real horror of living with your parents at 33 isn't necessarily the lack of funds to be anywhere else. It's something I like to call the death of the private self. And the death of the private self can be seen as the slow erosion of your interior world. You see, in a Nigerian home, you're seen 247, but not seen in the way that you would like to be, not seen as an individual. You're seen as a component of the house. You're seen as an artifact of the home you share with your parents because you've just been there for that long. I really can't have a private life. Instead, what I have is secrets. And there is no corner of the home where I'm not constantly someone's daughter or someone's sister. There's no space where I'm not constantly a confusing case study, because even if my parents don't say it, I'm pretty sure that every time I pass by them to get a glass of water from the fridge, they look at me and they ask themselves, where did we go wrong? When I turned 21 many years ago, I had this naive belief that adulthood will somehow come automatically with the perks of being unobserved by the first pair of critical eyes to ever witness me. But it's been, how many years has it been? It's been 12 years now, and it's not any different. Those same old pair of eyes still witness me every day, relentlessly. I kind of perceive my home now as an ontological trap. I feel like I've been forced into a time loop, or I'm living in a time loop. Let me explain. What makes home home is not necessarily things that you can touch or things that you can taste. It's an essence. It's the way when someone closes the door, I can tell that's my father. Or the way when someone is running down the staircase, or even someone farts, I can tell that's my mother. Home for me has a smell that no one else can smell, but I can. And being here, constantly exposed to these sensory anchors, keeps my mind in arrested development. Because everything here in my family home constantly reminds me that I'm the daughter or the child. Everything here, every furniture, every artifact here keeps constantly screaming at me that I haven't grown up. Because this is a home. It's a childhood home. Living at home with my parents keeps me the eternal girl, the puella eternus, if you will. I can't grow up because my environment is constantly screaming at my subconscious that I'm still 13. It takes me 10 times the emotional and mental energy to form and sustain an adult thought in the same room where I used to cry about my secondary school results. I feel environmentally suppressed. Being a 33-year-old late bloomer that still lives with her parents, I'm not only stressed by my own unlived life, but I'm now carrying the weight and the emotional stress of every other person in my environment, whether it's projected or real. And what I mean by this is, I can tell the vibe of the house based on how my mom closes her room door and walks to the living room. I can tell, oh, she's mad. Or how my father sits in the corner and just stares into oblivion. And you know what I do when I see these things? I say to myself, oh, they must be sad about my condition. They must be depressed, thinking about how my life has turned out. I mean, of course, it's not necessarily true that that's what they're thinking, but what else can I think about it? I've now become the human barometer for the collective dysfunction of the home. At home, I have no skin. because I constantly absorb the emotional pull and the emotional currents of everyone here around me. I feel emotionally dehydrated. I am perpetually in chronic hypervigilance, and it's been this way for 12 years, actually more. At 33, the home that I share with my parents is a collection of someone else's blood and choices and sweat, and not my own. Never my own. And I'm acutely aware of that. I feel like a guest in the arena of my past. Because your childhood home is supposed to be the arena of your past, isn't it? When I talk to my mom and dad, I have to respond as the child. And the child exists in the past. Read about transactional analysis. My home is a museum of my parents curating, and I feel as though I have no footprints upon the world. And if I died today, my room would promptly be another guest room. I'm not really sure yet what all of this is doing to me, but I'll find out soon enough. To the world, I might be the big bad Janine or Chi. But once my mom calls my name, I scream, "Yes, mommy." Once my dad calls me Chi baby, I scream, "Yes, daddy." I find myself explaining where I'm going to and why I'm home late to my parents, who ordinarily shouldn't have the power to ground me or police my movements anymore. But I do it anyway because at the end of the day, the reality is that right now, my muscle memory of parental obedience is far stronger than my 33-year-old autonomy. It is what it is. When my mom asks me where I'm going, when I tell her I want to go out, and then she tells me that she's not comfortable with my journey because she had a dream. I mean, she's not being controlling, is she? She's just being a mother. But at 33, her mothering comes at the expense of my existential erasure. Every act of support and kindness that I get from my parents riddles me with guilt and shame. Every day I consume a meal that I didn't work for, as I have a conversation with people who have seen my bum bum, people who have changed my diapers. As a 33-year-old living with her parents in Nigeria, every day is a constant reminder that I have not yet mastered the mechanics of my own existence. And don't get it twisted, this isn't ingratitude or self-hate or submission to shame. No. I find myself very lucky to have the loving parents that I have. I don't take what they do for me for granted, even if they are far from perfect. Because I know that there are other people like me who, in addition to being a late bloomer, now have to deal with the troubles of accommodation, now have to subject themselves to living with people who could potentially abuse them because home is hell and their parents are borderline demonic. And I can't imagine being a late bloomer and then having to deal with something like that. If that's your experience, I'm really sorry. My heart goes out to you. But at the same time, the paradox of what I'm saying and feeling is that when your parents are legitimately supportive and loving, the shame that you feel and carry about living with them seems illegitimate. You feel like you don't have a right to be miserable because after all you have a roof over your head and you're eating free food and they're providing everything for you. So what more do you want, right? But the mind does what the mind does, and the soul will always ache for what it doesn't have. It's simply human nature, and I am one complex human being. Anyway, those are just a few, like a very tiny amount of some of the deep and dark thoughts that I have about my situation. Thoughts that I excavated from my journal. I journal about the things that most people feel but can't articulate. But on the surface though, This is how I cope and I think. I say to myself that living with my parents is a strategy, because there are a lot of late bloomers who don't yet have stability or know how to manage themselves, but they will still gather the scraps that they have and then move out and then use 70% of their income to pose as an adult. I say to myself that by staying with my parents at my big age, I'm paying for my future blooming with the current price of my comforts and dignity. I'm using my parents' home as a safety net to build the version of me that won't need to be here but might want to. So yes, I see the shame. I see the weird ass teenage regression. But I'm still choosing to stay here anyway because I have a plan. Honestly, I don't have any other choice but to be here, but a lot of late bloomers like me live in this liminal space where they constantly tell themselves that they are moving out soon, something that they've been telling themselves for years. But in my own case, this soon for me has been 12 years coming. 12 years. So about 2 years ago, I stopped doing that to myself. I stopped putting my soul on freeze for a future that didn't yet exist. I stopped dissociating from my present self to inhabit a future me while leaving the me of the now vacant and empty. My parents' home is my home, even if it's only temporary. And I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful to have a place that I can call home. And coming to this conclusion has helped me stop the performance of I'm leaving soon and actually occupying the space where my feet touch the ground. Anyway, I'll stop this here for now. So if you're living in this kind of home that is kind and supportive, but at the same time feels confining, and you can kind of feel yourself fading away, you're not imagining it, it's real. And I hope I've helped someone name the weird thing today. See you in my next video. Bye.